Hello. Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you today. As you can hear, I'm originally from England, but I live in Israel. I've lived in Israel for most of my life. And there's a show in England called Not the 9 O'Clock News. It used to be by the Monty Python people. And they always used to say when they were transitioning from one thing to another, they would say, and now for something completely different, which is what we're going to experience now. I'll speak for about 20 minutes, something like that. And then we'll leave some time for a conversation. I know you finish like at 3 or whenever it is, so I think we should be okay. So it really was gripping. I'm not joking that it was gripping because the vote passed by 2 votes, right? So it was like I was waiting to hear what was going to happen with the abstentions and everything. So there's clearly a lot of, lively discussion and conversation amongst Jews. We all know that. But I think if we took a vote right now, and maybe we should, do we all agree that the situation for the next generation is A-OK and going well and we're fine and we have nothing to worry about? No, hurrah, we all agree on something. Okay, so that's why I wrote the book, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I won't be talking so much about the organization that I founded, Vibe Israel. If you want to know more about it, Rebecca over there, it represents Vibe Israel in North America. You're welcome to talk to her about it. I'll mention it, but I won't really be talking about that. What I will talk about is something completely different, and I'll start with something that I did about 12 years ago. I was asked by the San Francisco Federation to host a group of young, up-and-coming philanthropists. These were either kids of wealthy families in the Bay Area or people in their 20s and 30s who just come into a lot of money because they're in the tech industry. And the Federation was hoping that they would, where's the camera, just so I know? Is it that one? Yeah. Okay. Hi, people on Zoom. Okay. Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to be turning to you too much. Okay. So the Federation was hoping that these young kids, as they grow up, Israel would feature in their philanthropy. So they did what most organizations do, and they sent them over to Israel to what I would describe as a sort of millionaire's birthright. Okay. It was very tech oriented because that's what most people were interested in. And I was asked to host, I have a house with a garden in Tel Aviv. I was asked to host them for their last night as a kind of home hospitality sort of thing, which I gladly did. We were about 20, 30 people. The weather was lovely. We had Erez Komorovsky, a famous chef in Israel. He made the food. Music was nice. I brought some friends over. We had a lovely, lovely evening. And I'm listening. I'm doing this sort of hostess sort of thing. And I'm listening to people having a chat, and I can hear from the other side of the garden a conversation that was developing between a group of about 7 or 8 of these young people, and I could hear that it had to do something about their relationship with Israel. So I thought, I got to go check this out because this is what I care about the most in the world. So I walked up there, and one of the people there, I think his name was David, because this was 12 years ago, so don't take my word for it, but I think his name was David, and he said to me, we're a bunch of 20 and 30 millennials. This was millennials 12 years ago in their 20s and 30s, and we're from the Bay Area, and we're kind of having a conversation and asking ourselves, and maybe we should ask you as well, we're saying, why should we care about Israel? And he asked me that question, and when he asked that, it struck me what a difference a generation makes. Right? Because I've never asked myself why I should care about Israel, and I'm sure none of you have, but our kids are, and our grandchildren are, for whoever has grandchildren. So we better have a good answer, right? Because otherwise, if they don't care, we're going to lose them. So I did the obvious thing, and I went for the obvious choice, and I said, well, you're Jewish. Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people. It's your homeland. It belongs to you. You belong to it. You should care about Israel. That's very ominous. What just happened? Don't know. Okay. There's someone here. It's okay. All right. So I said the Jewish homeland bit, and to my surprise, didn't make much of an impact on them. I think they understood it conceptually, but emotionally, it didn't really get them all riled up. And this was 12 years ago, people in their 20s and 30s. So I thought, well, that's a bit worrying. Maybe I should do something else. Maybe I should go for a different tactic. So I said to them, well, I know that you can never imagine a world in which Israel is, more complicated than it is already, which was 12 years ago, and you as Jews wouldn't really have a great experience where you live, and anti-Semitism would rise and so on. And there's only one country in the world that would accept you, right? As it's your refuge, it's your insurance ticket, and that's Israel. So of course you should care about Israel. And that led to a complete blank stare. They really did not know what I was talking about. This is not a huge surprise. They were born into a world where Israel existed. Jews in America are very much accepted. We know today it's a little bit more sensitive, but I come from Europe. I can tell you it can get a lot worse than what you're experiencing right now. So didn't make much of an impression again. So I thought to myself, well, why do I care about Israel? My husband's from California. I'm from England. Why do we live in Israel? And it dawned on me, and this is what I said to David and his friends. I said to him, I care about Israel because I just really love living there. It's a great country. I like my friends. I like the weather. The food's great. It's culturally stimulating. It's intellectually exciting. I feel alive when I live in Israel, and that's why I care about it. And to my great surprise, that's what kind of caused these kids to wake up and sort of say, you know what? Actually, and David said to me, he said, we're looking at each other, and that's pretty much what we were saying before, that now we've actually experienced it, and we've seen it. We know it's actually a country that's very similar to ours. It's a pretty cool place. We quite like it, and I guess we care about Israel right now too. And I thought, great job, well done. So I never saw David and his friends again, and I don't know if Israel featured or eventually featured in their philanthropy. But what I do know is that David and his friends and all of us in this room and everyone around the world in the last 10, 15 years have been going through one of the greatest revolutions since the Industrial Revolution. Does anybody know what revolution I'm referring to? Digital revolution. Yeah, I'm talking about this, right? It's my son, he's a soldier. He's got 2 kids in the army and one too young for the army yet. And yes, I'm talking about the social media revolution. Okay, because some people say internet. Internet was access to information. Social media is access to one another. And in fact, my co-author and I dedicate the entire first chapter of our book to what we call the social life media revolution. Because this is there's an incredible statistic from Birthright from pre-COVID, 2019. They found that the average person, when they are on their phone every single day scrolling their social media feeds, they scroll the height of the Statue of Liberty. That's over 300 feet of scrolling. Yeah, it's no wonder they have the attention span of a goldfish, right? Because there's too much information coming at them. And it's changed everything, okay? It's changed the way they communicate. It's changed the way they gather information. It's changed the way they form opinions. It's changed everything. And since it's changed everything, I have only one question. In this barrage of information that they're getting at them, the height of the Statue of Liberty of digital content every single day, what are they seeing about Israel? Okay, so we bring some data and some statistics about this, but I think we can all, again, agree, I'm really into causing agreement in this very diverse group, but I think we can all agree that A, they're not seeing much about Israel, okay, and B, whatever they are seeing is probably not what we want them to see, and much more what the BDS and the anti-Israel movements want them to see, okay? And that's not a situation that we should accept as a given, but that's their new town hall, social media. And we all know we need to be there, but what we tend to do is we tend to take what we already did and put it on social and expect it to work. But social is a brand new beast, and we need to understand it much better because that's where our kids are at. So what if I could wave a magic wand, okay? And you come home one day and you see a group of, teenagers, your family, Jewish, non-Jewish, and they're sitting there and they're all on their phones because they sit next to each other on their phones, right? They don't talk to one another. They talk through their phones. And you notice that they're all smiling and they're kind of looking at each other and excited, happy. And the Jewish kids, your kids, are like super happy about it. And you go over there and you notice that one of them is actually looking at a social media campaign about the gay pride parade that's happening next week in Tel Aviv, this Friday, Thursday and Friday. There's a social media campaign, comes to them on their feed, okay? It's actually happening in town. There's one if you go to Times Square, you'll see some advertising from Tel Aviv. I'm actually on the board of the Tel Aviv Global, which is the marketing arm of Tel Aviv, and Brand Israel Group, I was years and years ago. So one of them is looking at the social media campaign about the gay pride parade. Another one is reading on a social justice website that they follow, reading a great article about IsraAid and what it does for the Ukrainian refugees, okay? It's not something that's about Israel. They're on a different website, but they're getting content about Israel. And yet another one is seeing a foodie influencer that they follow every day here in New York, posting from Jerusalem eating a pizza at a kosher pizza restaurant that has just been announced as one of the top 50 pizzas in the world. True story. Never been there. I don't know. I saw it like on the flight over here and I was like, in Jerusalem, yeah. I'll find out and send it to you. It will be the most important piece of information you get from AZM. Okay, so imagine a world like that. No, we can't agree on that? Okay. I'm happy to disagree. I come from Israel. I can handle it. It's okay. All right, so imagine if you could create a world where Jewish and non-Jewish next gen are seeing Israel a lot on their social media. Remember, 2 to 3 hours a day, that's where they're at. And what they see is what we want them to see and not what somebody else wants them to see. Wouldn't that be transformational for your lives here as Jews? I come from Israel. I live in Israel. It would be transformational for the state of Israel because every country needs more tourism, more business, more investment, stuff like that. But over the years that I've been involved in this, which is about 15 years, I've seen what's been going on in North America, and I can totally empathize with your experience and what's going on with your next generation. So that kind of reality would be transformational. And imagine your Shabbat dinners, right? Instead of kids coming home from campus saying I had to, hide my Magen David or take off my kippah, they would be talking about something positive about Israel. It's our dream, right? So I'm here to tell you that that is totally doable. Absolutely doable, and in fact, every country does it, except the one country that needs to do it the most, which is Israel. Okay, and that's why we wrote the book. Okay, this is the book. I bought a couple of copies. I didn't have any more. I'm sorry, it was a little bit last minute to get it over, and I've been traveling across the state. Ethical Tribing, it's called, and I'll explain the name. Ethical Tribing, Connecting the Next Generation to Israel in the Digital Era. And what it is basically a strategy and a set of tactics for how to ensure that Israel, for young people, becomes synonymous with things that inspire them and things that are positive and things that are relevant to their lives and not just with conflict or religion. I'm not saying that Israel isn't about conflict or religion. It's definitely about those two things. It's just not the whole story. And that's why I got into this field 15 years ago, because I wanted to promote Israel's image. And I thought maybe because of my English accent, my blonde hair and whatever, I'll be a bit of a better speaker than some of the Israeli spokesmen who at the time were dreadful, really bad. They're much better. They're much better these days. You've got to give them some credit. But then I asked myself, is it working? All this conversation about explaining the conflict, trying to get people to understand us, is it working? And for young people, can they really relate? Very difficult to explain some of the things that Israel does, okay? So I decided I wanted to look into a different direction, and now I've written a book which kind of creates a model of what it is that we've been doing for the last 15 years. So just so you see, we spent a lot of time on looking for the symbol that would represent what we're talking about. And what you see here is the Star of David, but what you also see with the title is that it's also the State of Israel, okay? It's the flag and the Star of David. So the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and the State of Israel, they are one and the same, especially in terms of image. So when Jews do things that contribute to the world, that's wonderful for the State of Israel. We enjoy the benefit of what all the Jewish people are doing in North America, for example, to contribute to the world. But when Israel does something which appears to be questionable or complex or controversial, that affects your lives and the lives of your children. And the only way to not be affected these days as a Jewish person by what Israel does is to not identify as Jewish. And we don't want that to happen. And the keen-eyed ones of you might notice that we've got the Star of David is made up of stick figures, meaning all of us, right? It fell again. Some things, but don't put it back. Okay, but some of you will notice that some of these kids are walking towards our tribe and some are walking away. And that little trickle is what we're most worried about. We all say the writing's been on the wall for the last 10 years or so, or at least 5 years. We're all worried, but we're not doing enough as far as I'm concerned. So I hope that I'll be able to share some ideas of what to do. So we are talking about the actual act of tribing. Tribing is not a word. We coined it, okay? So it's not just a tribe. We have to actively make sure that people want to walk towards it, want to be attracted by it. We're going to use strategies and tactics that maybe sometimes the BDS uses because they're doing a pretty good job. Why not take a page out of their book? But we're going to do it ethically. meaning authentically, because young people can smell out inauthenticity a mile away. Whatever we say about Israel has to be 100% authentic. We cannot paint a beautiful picture of a country. I live there. I do not wear rose-colored glasses in any way, shape, or form about Israel. And that's okay. Every single country is controversial in its own way, except for maybe some of the Nordic countries, which we all can't stand because they're so perfect. But anyway, that's the explanation of the name ethical tribing. So the social life media revolution was what I wanted to share with you. Two ideas today. And the second idea is something I like to call the supermarket of nations, which is a great analogy to understand how our next generation views the world. Okay, so I'll be talking about that in a second. And then what I'll do is I'll take those two ideas and mesh them into a mission for our community, which I hope you'll agree with. So bear with me. You're walking into a supermarket, you've got your shopping cart, and you walk in, and you're not there to buy detergent or toothpaste. You're there to buy a country. And what do I mean by that? You take your shopping cart, you walk up to the first aisle. It doesn't say breakfast cereals. It says, for example, travel destinations, because you're about to pick where you're going to go next on your vacation. And the choices are unlimited these days, especially for our kids, right? This is the supermarket of nations, meaning the products on the shelf, just like you would buy Coca-Cola or toothpaste, the products are countries, cities, regions, places. And in the last 20 years, places have understood that they can actually sell and market themselves just like you would Coca-Cola, right? There's different ways of marketing countries. Travel is one of the most obvious ones. So you're in the travel aisle, you see Iceland saying, come on over into a volcano, and Switzerland saying, come skiing, and there's someone walking around with some great chocolate, because we all know Switzerland's all about that. And the town's, what's it called again? The Times Square? Sorry, I don't know why I forget that every time. Times Square, you've got the cowgirl or whatever walking around and saying, come to me, and you're thinking, maybe I'll go to a Broadway show. So it's all about choices. You don't have to pick one product on the shelf. And for our next generation, Israel is not the only product on the shelf. The assumption that they have to pick it is a mistaken assumption. We need to get them to want to pick it, which is a completely different world to live in, okay? So let's say you want to buy a car, okay? What you would do with that is you would go to what's called the made-in aisle. The made-in aisle is where products that are made in countries, and we automatically attribute the characteristics and values of those products to the country itself, or the characteristics and values of the country to the products. So when you buy a car, you subconsciously or consciously, one of the first thoughts you have is, am I going to buy an American car, a German car? For a lot of Jews, they won't buy German cars, right? Just off the shelf completely. Maybe I want to buy a safe car, which means that I'm thinking of not an American one. Which one am I thinking of? Safe car, Volvo. So you're saying, okay, Sweden, right? That's okay. Except that it's now owned by China. Americans, are you going to change your mind about that or not? Okay, and China is very smart. They're purposefully, the Chinese company that bought it is purposefully not letting anyone know that it's not Swedish anymore, because that's a good thing to be connected to, okay? So that's the supermarket of nations. The choices are endless, and every single country is vying for the attention of the shopper, meaning they're marketing themselves. And when you market yourself, you go with your strengths. You don't spend most of your time on the customers who are against you. You spend most of your time on those who already love you. They're there shopping, but all the rest, okay, they're the ones that you actually focus on because you want to increase the pie of your sales. So now what I'd like you to do, just so you understand how young people are viewing it as well, think of a member of your family who's like an older teenager or maybe a young 20s, okay? Just have someone in your mind, picture that person, and imagine them walking around the supermarket of nations, meaning scrolling on their digital social media feeds, and they've got countries coming at them every single day, okay? So the people that you're thinking of, which one of them is like, by a show of hands, like they have a travel bug and they love traveling and they probably want to spend most of their time in the travel aisle? Anybody here that likes doing that? Okay. Yeah, lots of kids today. Remember, when I was growing up, and I'm sure when many of you were growing up, the choices were not limitless. It was all a matter of cost and convenience. Now it's all low cost. You have to pay for your suitcase. You could go without a suitcase. All these options are all available to them. They go anywhere they want. They're interested in anything you put in front of them that has a value. Okay, what about foodies? Do we have any foodies in the audience? Yeah, there are lots of people. These are things that, also maybe business people. People are interested in their career, maybe considering an internship in another country or thinking about relocating for work-wise. They're walking around there as well. Okay, now imagine, because this is the supermarket of nations and we get to know countries in different ways, imagine that if I told you that there's also an aisle called the regional conflicts aisle, okay, because there are many regional conflicts around the world. Okay, India, Pakistan, Russia, Ukraine, all these different, Israel, Palestine, right? And there's a heated debate going on right now between the BDS supporters and pro-Israel people. And they're having a great argument about what's going on in Israel, okay? Those who raised their hands and thought about their own kids in the supermarket of nations, which of you are now going to raise your hands and say, yes, I think that they're going to leave the travel or the business or the food aisle and go over to the regional conflicts aisle and join the fight for Israel and spend most of their day there in the regional conflicts aisle? There's always one or two. That's fine. No, that's great. We need them. It's not that we don't. I'm not saying that we don't need to be active in the regional conflicts aisle. In fact, what I'm saying is that what we all agree is that most young people, non-Jewish especially, but even Jewish, they don't hate Israel. They're indifferent towards it. There's an apathy towards Israel because they have no idea what the country has to offer them, despite all of our efforts. And I've seen your efforts, and it must be tremendously frustrating. But they have no clue what it's all about. And it's our job to let them know what it's all about, because it's Elie Wiesel, who we all know was a Holocaust survivor and passed away, but he said the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And with indifference, there's almost like a race. Who's going to get to them first? Because when you don't care about something, then whatever someone tells you about that, imagine a person, whatever someone tells you about another person you don't care about, you just say, okay, whatever. But if it's your best friend or someone you know rather well, you're like, well, wait a minute, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, right? That's where we want to get to, because most people are indifferent. So if most people, most kids, young people, and when I say next generation, by the way, I mean millennials and Gen Z, so under the age of 40, okay? So if most of them are indifferent towards Israel, they don't hate Israel, our mission as a community is not just to be active in the regional conflict aisle, because we do need to be active there. We need what we call the capital A advocates for Israel. We will always need them, because there is a ton of fake news and, false, all the stuff that one says about Israel. As an Israeli, it's tremendously annoying to me as well. However, I find it less effective to only be there. And our mission as a community is maybe to spread ourselves a little bit wider and be just as active, if not more, in the other aisles of the supermarket of nations, meaning flood the social media feeds of these young people with content that will come to them. They are not looking for content about Israel. You can post on each and every one of your social media platforms, but unless you have people already following you, you will not get to them. It's the way that the system works. And we have a whole chapter called Pay to Play that is all about how social media works. Because until 3 years ago, there was something called organic reach, meaning if you posted something and it was pretty cool, then other people would see it as well, okay? But today, since 2019, they changed the social media algorithms. Facebook wants to make money, and so whoever is posting something that isn't a private individual, they have zero organic reach. It's only when they pay, they get to the audiences that they want. The bonus is that when you pay, you can target the audience that you want. Okay, so you can be very specific about who you're getting to. However, you can't target based on religion. Okay, so if you try to target Jews, you can't do that. It's not legal, because people are not asked to identify what their religion is necessarily. Okay, so what we want them to do is to see Israel on the various shelves of the supermarket of nations, to be so attracted by what it has to offer, meaning market ourselves, market what Israel has to offer. They're so attracted that they reach their hand out, they take it off the shelf, and they put it in their shopping cart, meaning into their hearts, okay? Because decision-making begins here in our hearts, and it's our hearts that tell our heads what to do. It doesn't work the other way around, and this is backed by neuroscience, and we bring some of this information here in the book, because we are constantly trying to think of the right talking points and have a good debate and win in that way. And in fact, it turns out that people are very complicated. They can be completely turned off by someone for one reason, but completely attracted to them for a different reason. And they will ignore everything that they say or do that doesn't align with their values just because there's something that does. Think about all the Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all these different things. They're promoting themselves through sports and through different ways. Saudi Arabia just bought Messi, okay? Think of that. You'd think that in Saudi Arabia, as great as it is, they're doing a beautiful campaign and it's wonderful, but they're still chopping people's hands off and killing, people for reasons that we would never ever do. And yet young people are flocking there, okay? We can do the same for Israel. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And here's the really great news. Most countries, many countries, need to find what is it that they have to offer that the next generation is going to appreciate. Not everybody has something exciting to share. Israel, actually rather surprisingly, has everything going for it that appeals to the next generation. Everything, whether it's our great tech or our pop culture. Think about Gal Gadot. She's on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or one of the Jimmys, and she's talking about the fact that she went to the Israeli military, and she's talking about the fact she just visited her friends in Tel Aviv. Nobody says anything to her, get off Jimmy Kimmel, because she's charmingly, quintessentially Israeli. And Israelis, while we can be a lot, we're not always charming, but we can definitely be very appealing and very attractive. And Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, is one of those things. What about our Netflix series? The fact that we came third in the Eurovision. The Eurovision is the biggest music contest in the world. I know it doesn't affect the United States, but it's 800 million people watching, and it's by popular vote. We came third this year because the song was good enough. How does that make sense? Compared to the world that you live in, where I'm sure that Israel's a very heavy term, right? It's more of a liability for a lot of young people than it is an asset. And we want it to be an asset. Those who are with us, they're already with us. It's great. So we have Tel Aviv with the beaches and the nightlife. We have Jerusalem with the heritage and the history that young people very much are attracted to as well. We have the Gay Pride Parade. We have the great food. You name it, Israel's got it. And every single one of the things that the examples that I gave in the tech world where I came from as well, it would be considered a proof of concept, right? Basically, whenever you want to sell something, you don't plan for ages and then take ages to build it and then you put it out to the market. You create something pretty rough and you send it out to the market and see if you get traction. That's proof of concept. Every time Israel puts its best foot forward, there are people who are fascinated by it, want to connect with it with open arms. Look at our Startup Nation message. Look how great that works, okay? So we shouldn't lose hope. We shouldn't think, and we shouldn't do what the BDS wants us to do, which is to consistently talk to them about how they see Israel. I don't care what they have to say about Israel. I will need to fight it. But why am I not talking to everybody else? Did everybody see Mad Men? You saw Mad Men. So remember, I don't know if one of the chapters, Don Draper says, and he's from advertising, and this is the world that we're in, because we're in the other aisles of the supermarket of nations. He said, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. We're not changing the conversation. We're entering into the hole that the BDS is digging for us. So in the book, we show how to do that. I'm not going to go into great detail, but we use branding, marketing, the science of influence, sophisticated use of social media. But I can tell you, I don't even know how to post a comment on a Instagram story. And I run a digital-first organization for a digital-first generation, okay? You don't have to know it. It's fine. Get other people who do know it, but not just, don't say to yourselves, okay, we have a 25-year-old and we're just going to put them on our social media and manage it for us, and they'll know what they're doing. They might know what they're doing better than us, but if you consider this as a proper product that you're selling, you're actually going to have to invest in social media much more significantly. And what we found, what Vibe Israel does, is that we bring influencers to Israel, digital influencers. These are Instagrammers, YouTubers, TikTokers. We now, tomorrow morning, we have a group of 6 American wellness influencers, so yogis and people like that, who are traveling to Israel, and they're going to spend a week in Israel discovering the wellness scene of Israel. Okay, that's how we get them. The magnet is never Israel. The magnet is the thing that they care about and want to post about and what their audience is following. But then the frame of the picture is Israel. And every single time we do a tour, we get 3 to 4 million hits, positive hits, because we can also see what they're saying. So when they like us, they promote us. And when it's cool, it's contagious. Okay, we've reached in the last 47 trips that we've done, we've reached over 1 billion positive mentions about Israel, which sounds great. It's a drop in the ocean, though, right? It's not one organization. That's why I'm not here just talking about Vibe Israel. I'm here because this needs to be a mindset of the community. If we all do it, we will actually be investing the equivalent of Coca-Cola in our marketing and branding of Israel. So when it's cool, it's contagious brings me back to the garden party that I told you about at the beginning. And remember David, and he said, why should I care about Israel? And I tried the Jewish homeland piece, and I tried the insurance ticket. And in the end, it was the cool factor of Israel that resonated with these young people, and it still does. And actually, I have a letter here from President Herzog. You'll see at the front of the book, there's a nice quote from him, but he sent me this nice letter. And I'm going to read a sentence from the letter that's not on the quote. He said, ethical tribing, book, shows that everything we need to secure our Jewish future is really right in front of us. And that's exactly what we're saying, because this ultimately is about securing our Jewish future. This is not just about the state of Israel. I live in Israel. You all care deeply about Israel as the American Zionist movement. But this is about the global Jewish story, okay? And I want your lives as Jews living outside of Israel to be just as comfortable as mine is. I don't send kids to campuses and get worried about it, okay? It's a different kind of thing. This is about the world that we want to leave our kids long after we're gone. And I want to make sure that I'm part of shaping that world. I want to make sure that my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my own, stay Jewish, and that they're non-Jewish friends and that they love Israel. And the fact that you're here today, despite the disagreements over the voting, clearly shows that you feel the same way. And so I invite you to read the book, to get some of the tactics, to ask me if you ever need anything. I do some consulting work as well. But basically what we're suggesting is, let's get Israel's vibe to go viral. And it can happen today. Social media is an amazing tool. We don't have to understand it. We just need to use it for our benefit. Thank you. Maybe I should give you, I have time, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So we do have some time for questions, and we will go to those on Zoom as well as those in the room. So I'm going to go in this order. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the room. Herbert, you'll monitor the Zoom, okay? And please introduce yourself too.
I'll repeat the question for the benefit of or if you want the microphone, it's fine. There's a serious conversation taking place. It's okay, ask the question, I'll repeat it. Yeah, exactly. How many abstentions? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Ripka. I'm with Volunteers for Israel. Bingo. You are today's winner.
Thank you.
You have stolen my heart. You are preaching the truth and reality.
Thank you.
50 years ago, when I was 16, I thought I would be 16 the rest of my life. Could not imagine what was going to happen, transformations in the world. My relationship with Israel is really the same. It has only gotten stronger and stronger. But I see we are missing so many water past the bridge within my family and from without my family. And we are in extraordinary times that I don't think we have seen before. I spent the first half of my career in the advertising marketing world. I was a madman. And then
That's why you get it.
And then I pivoted into the world of travel, leisure, hospitality. All I did was sell cruise vacations for the next 20 years. I had modest success, enough so that before I was 60, I was able to retire from that business pre-COVID. And Israel is like a cruise. It has everything, something for everyone. People just need to know that it is there. I'd love to have more of a discussion with you. I noticed that you said more than one copy. I
Only
want to
have-
make
only
you
have
an
two, I'm
offer you
afraid.
can't refuse.
Okay.
I'm going to do a 2-for-1 with you.
Okay.
I have one copy here of Army Fatigues, which is all about the past president of Volunteers for Israel, Mark Werner, the first 4 times he did the VFI program, which is known as SAREL, Sharut L'Yisrael, National Service.
Yeah.
And Mark is a wonderful attorney, a great writer, took copious notes, and every time he would return from a stint with SAREL, he came back with amazing stories. By the 4th time, people said, you know, your stories are so incredible, you should write a book. He wrote the book. And I give these out as icebreakers. My next stop today actually was the New York Yacht Club. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to go there to have another meeting. The second book I love is Make Your Bed by Admiral William McRaven. Yeah. It's 10 commandments on how to get by in life. One of the big things is teaming up with the right people, because the world is complicated. You can't do it all on your own.
Mike, you have a question?
My question is, why has this been kept a secret for so long? Thank you for doing it. And I'd love to have a trade 2-for-1, something like that would be great. And I'm so glad to have met you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll take you everywhere I go, and it'll be great.
So for those in the room and those on Zoom, I realize we're at 3:00 now. For those who want to continue, we're in the room. We're going to continue. Those on Zoom, feel free to stay on. We are recording the session, and if you do have to leave, recognizing your scheduling, the recording will be available for you.
Okay, so it hasn't been a secret. Actually, I established Vibe Israel because of a program of the Foreign Ministry. The Foreign Ministry set up a program called the Brand Israel Project in 2007. I heard about it in 2009. It was under Tzipi Livni, who was the foreign minister at the time. And I loved the idea. It was just about how do you promote Israel through its strengths, okay? And I thought, how fabulous. And I studied the topic. That's how I became an expert, and I now work with other countries on branding themselves. And I established the organization to support this project, which was meant to be a 100 million shekel project a year by the Israeli government, because most of the times it's a top-down effort. The governments do it. I was so excited and passionate about it that I was the only one who didn't notice that the entire government project didn't happen, because Israel has different priorities. We have security priorities. We have coalition governments that are very complicated. Marketing Israel is not the biggest priority for them. In fact, sometimes for some governments, they'd rather us be attacked than feel very confident, because then you need to vote for someone to protect you. Okay, so it's actually quite a good political way of getting yourself in there. It's not a secret. Every country does it, as I said. The Israeli Foreign Ministry does some of it, the Israeli Tourism Ministry a little bit, but nothing compared to what we need. Nothing. And we're not talking about we're not talking about Coca-Cola budgets, okay? Iceland does it at $4 million a year. And New Zealand does it for a little bit less. Okay, so this is not, I'm talking about something which is the equivalent of any of the very large advocacy organizations, like $10 million a year. You would see an enormous difference, enormous. We did a $30,000 investment in a social media campaign targeted to African American and Hispanic college students in 3 cities across the United States, where we knew that there are issues, and we got 3 million hits. We did research before, we did research afterwards, and we saw the shift in perception about Israel. This is very doable, it's very simple. And the fact that every time we invite our influencers to come to Israel, they're happy to come. These are all things that are just there for the taking, literally, but we are our own gatekeepers. That's my feeling.
Hi, Josh Weinberg from the Reform Movement from Arza. First of all, thank you. I mean, kol hakavod, a really compelling presentation. And I would very much like to read the book to go deep in this. My question is this a digital rebrand of like Hasbara, essentially? So I really love the concept of finding people where they are and connecting to them with things that they would want to connect to, sort of the natural digital marketing trends and targeted ads that we all see. Really, and that's important. I agree that there is something for everyone there. However, I think my bigger question is, what is your goal?
No, I understood that.
Because the way you ended it, you want your kids and grandkids to love Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why? And what's that? And are we just trying to come up with clever marketing, in a digital world so that people will ignore things like the occupation or the treatment of Liz? That was for you. It was for you. I asked that, or anything else. Like, should we just not how they're being treated, and so on? What is the
I
goal?
understand.
Do you deal with those kind of questions?
Okay. Do you want to follow up? Yeah, let's bring it on. Bring it on. Let's do it.
I'm right in the corner, so I don't even know. So I'll move a little bit. I'm Nomi Colton-Max from Amenu, and I also want to thank you and even take Josh's questions a little further than that, is that listening to all that you talked about said to me that you are targeting the same audience that's already committed or the audience that's never been through that door, the same thing that Birthright would do. For me, talking from the position of a parent of progressive Zionist children or children that went to Ramah or many of the Ramah and the Reform Movement camps and all the other camps recently that have said, we were snowed growing up. How dare you? And now we need to know truth and learn. We want to find ways to love Israel, and Josh and I and Karen, everyone in this room loves Israel and do all that we can to love Israel. But we need to present our children with a reality that they can understand, that they can find a way to say, as we did yesterday in the parade, we love Israel, but we can still criticize it. And so for our children on social media, our activists, when they see what you've written, it's an absolute turnoff because, as Josh says, that's what it says to them. What I need something is to show something a little different. So so that's what I'm saying. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. My audience, this book was not written for your kids to read. Okay? This book was written for the community that is managing what's getting through to these kids to read. Okay? And I have a few things that are coming in. So, Josh, you speak Hebrew, right? And you asked, is this just a digital form of hasbara? You know what hasbara means? The word? What does it mean? Explanation. It means the act of explaining. Marketing does not sit on explaining anything. You do not explain why Coca-Cola is killing you and McDonald's is super unhealthy, right? You go with the things that emotionally connect people to them, and people make their own decisions where they're going to accept a product with its shortcomings or not. That's the first thing. So it's not a digital form of hasbara. The capital A advocacy organizations do digital forms of hasbara. I personally, I don't know how you felt after May 2021. I felt terrible. Like, I was going in and out of the shelter, and lots of people were fighting the fight, and we weren't winning. And the reason is, and there's a whole chapter about this in the book called Crisis Deflation, okay, rather than inflation, because we are literally feeding the BDS movement with oxygen by responding to them all the time and raising awareness. And that's why you saw it all over your social media, because that's how the algorithms work. If there's a conversation, we'll all have, I'll just complete it. If there's a conversation that we're all having, we're all going to see it. Only what we're following on our social media is not what our kids are following. If you have kids who are progressive, that's great. They are not only following Israel, okay? They're following a ton of other stuff. And I'm not going to tell them Israel's great, but the wellness influencer or vegan influencers we brought will say Israel's a great place. And then they might see it and they'll say, well, wait a minute, I don't understand. I know that Israel does all these awful things, but I also have an influencer that I really trust, because after you guys and their friends, digital influencers are the most trusted people online in the world for our teenagers and for our young people. And they're going to start getting confused. You remember what we were like when teenagers? What made something right? It's what our and what our peers said, right? If somebody else is saying that it's okay, and all around me I'm hearing it's okay, and we put Israel on a pedestal. What's your name? Nomi. We put Israel on a pedestal because Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, okay, Dubai is one of the top 10 cities in the world. The terrible things that they do to the people building the buildings of that city are not any worse than what Israel is doing, okay? But your kids will ignore it. And if you say to them, you want to go to Dubai? They'll say, maybe I will. Would they say, no, I won't go to Dubai? They might. Yours will. Okay. Some people, I'm not trying to get at everybody. China's a good example. Okay. I'm not trying to get everyone. I don't need everyone. I need most. And what I'm looking for are most of the people who haven't walked through the door, definitely. And the way to get through to them is by having other people and creating online ads and content that creates a reality, an ecosystem for them that says Israel is synonymous with something good. The last thing I'll say is I'm Israeli. I live the stuff that you guys are either for or against, okay? I am super uncomfortable right now in my life in Israel. I'm there, and I didn't used to say, I'm no longer the CEO of Vibe. We now have a professional CEO, so I can say what I think. I'm there every Saturday night fighting for my country to remain a democracy. I am very uncomfortable about what's going on. I'm sorry to anybody who doesn't feel the same way, but that doesn't mean I don't love my country. End of story. I don't understand why it's even, and when our kids, no, I know you agree. I'm not going to be able to sit down with your son or daughter and explain that to them. They're going to need somebody else to do that. It needs to come up all around them, just like McDonald's made a huge shift by saying they use canola oil. Okay, do you remember all that? And they changed their brand, whatever. And then suddenly McDonald's okay again, even though there was that program, the Netflix show or the show, the documentary Super Size Me, where you realize that you could die eating McDonald's all day long. That's Israel. Same thing exactly.
Yeah. I'm a little confused. First of all, I'm Mark Cohen. I'm a vice president of Religious Zionists of America. And as far as background, where people come from, I have 3 kids. One served in Sahal. The other 2 made Aliyah. We sent them to Bnei Kiva, and we brought them to Israel every year or 2, and they loved Israel. And of the 2 who made Aliyah, one is right wing and the other one is left wing. But that's all good. I'm a little confused because I don't understand what the goal is, because people can say they love Israel and they'll make a trip to Israel, but if you don't have the Jewish connection, the Jewish content, what is going to stick? And the other question I had about this is, for our parents' generation, the Holocaust, the Shoah was a very big thing. Our generation growing up, the Soviet Union, Soviet Jewry, that was a big thing. Is it possible now, and I just came back from Germany and Poland, that anti-Semitism, global anti-Semitism, and Shoah things are again something which, it's not sexy, it's not cool, it's not great, but it's something which has to be part of the mix in trying to sell people to have a real firm commitment to the Jewish state?
So first of all, the story of Israel, we have a chapter called Strategic Storytelling. We took the story of Israel. We don't just tell any story, because otherwise in marketing, if you're not saying the same story over and over again, it doesn't stick, okay? And that's what's happening in our community. Each one of us is taking an aspect and promoting it, and nobody really knows what Israel's really about. Look at Tel Aviv, the city. It's this non-stop city. Everybody knows that that's what it's about, okay? So the story of Israel rests on the heritage and the backbone of the fact that it is 75% Jewish, okay? It absolutely, the creativity, the innovation, the celebration of life, the moral values are because it's a Jewish country. Now, we don't necessarily frame it in exactly those terms, but we're saying that kind of stuff to these people who are not Jewish. And I can tell you as an example, I'll give you a small example. We always include a Shabbat dinner in every trip that we do, okay? And we make sure that it's in someone's house where they have kids and they have a kind of a light kiddush so that they see what it's all about and it doesn't hog the conversation, because I don't know if you know, but for the next generation, religion is becoming a bit of a turnoff because they feel it's quite dogmatic. Jewish and non-Jewish, and in many religions it's an issue. It's not just a Jewish thing. So we have them in our house and they see what they see. And we've done several of these tours, and at least 3 or 4 times, these people who have millions of followers post a post saying, we just had Friday night dinner. We actually have a big banner with us, a screenshot of it. We have a Friday night dinner. Every Friday night, the people of Israel come together and they do kiddush, in brackets, ritual blessings. Okay, that's pretty Jewish, right? And they say it was such a lovely, sweet moment of community. It's like Thanksgiving every week, okay? And for young people to relate, or any person, to be able to say something that's so American, but in fact it's from Israel, it's exactly what they need to hear. When you couch it in terms that are internal, meaning our own story, the Jewish story. If somebody's not Jewish or doesn't really care about being Jewish, why should they be interested? We have to ask ourselves that question. If we just tweak some of the terminology, it works. So that's what we did with a sort of the McKinsey of the field of country branding that works with Brazil and with Sweden and with several other countries. I do consulting work with them for other countries. And we developed a story about Israel that we know resonates, sits on those values. That fact, I feel very strongly that we have to have the Jewish story in there. And we have to recognize that 25% of the Israeli people are not Jewish. It actually makes Israel much more compelling and interesting because one of the biggest values that the next generation appreciates is diversity. And if they think that we're all white, Jewish, religious people, then they're not going to get excited. But when they come and they see that it's much more varied, then that it works.
So we have, it's now 3:50, and I know I called on one more. Was it Liz? Okay, so Liz, and then Debbie will ask the final question, and we will move on from there.
Thank you, Michael. I do think that your British accent and blonde hair are great and make you a great spokesperson. I'm Liz Burney from ZOA. I think that Josh Weinberg's question was an important one because this is exactly what the BDS people say. They say, oh, these things are, well and good, but, you're committing genocide, or these are the people, or you're an occupier. You're in Israel. The important thing for us, and when Jews agree with them that we're an occupier of our own homeland, that's a big problem. And I think we're missing another ingredient of this, which is the reason why BDS is effective is because they repeat the same negative lies about Israel over and over, occupier, genocide, and so on. But we never say the true negatives about the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. How many people know that Hamas? No, but I'm going to speak with it. I think this is important. Well, okay, all right. Okay, but what about talking? I mean, most people don't even know that the Palestinian Authority pays terrorists to murder Jews. How about emphasizing that over and over again so that they understand the moral depravity of that position? So they're not going to be related to that. They're not going to relate to that position. They're not going to relate to Hamas. Talk about what they're doing. Talk about how they put their kids up, as human shields, and how they kill their kids after they have them go through the, dig their tunnels.
I understand what you're saying. I feel that argument and the pro-Israel advocacy and all the things we're trying to say, which are for many, no, I get it. Haven't we not been doing that all these years? This is what we have been. Stand With Us does it. No, they don't know it, but haven't we been trying? I see it quite a lot, I have to say. If you're there, then it's there. I'm going to say a sentence which may be very annoying. But it's also very true. It's very important to be right, but it's more important to be attractive. Nobody's going to stop to listen to you if they don't care about what you have to say. They don't care. They don't care what the BDS, what the Palestinian, they don't even know who the Palestinian Authority is. Yes, of course, they don't care. You're not going to get someone, it's literally, you walk in the street and you have a dog, and somebody says, oh, I have a dog as well, and you can start having a conversation. Otherwise, you're just going to walk past one another in the street and you'll never meet. And that's why all of our efforts are just not working. They're literally not working, and it's very unfortunate. And I could tell you that you're right. I could also tell you as an Israeli that legally, globally, we are in somewhat way occupying, whether it's true or not. Legally. I'm also a lawyer, so I'm going to... No, it's okay. But it's controversial, right? We're going to get into an argument. I don't want to get into an argument. I want to build relationships. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to go in a whole totally different direction. So I heard a similar kind of project a number of years ago, which was started by people who were originally in the MFA trying to do this, but then left the MFA to do it outside because it was more effective.
Do you remember which one it was? Because I know all
I
of them.
thought it was called the Gabriel Project or something like that, but every time I Every time I look at that, it turns up something in Mumbai. But
There was something called the David Project.
the what?
There was something called the David Project, but it was more advocacy.
That was different. I
Yeah.
know that project. Anyway, my question really is, since that time when they started to try to make these connections on connected interests, not Israel, on other interests, just like you're stating, there's now been a change in how the social media works in terms of these algorithms.
Mhm.
And how does that affect what you're trying to do? Because I see when I'm interacting with social media, not very well, because I am not a young person, that even my interactions now are very different from
Can't
what they
see it.
used to be
Yeah.
because the algorithms really make them very narrow.
Some of your followers don't even see what you're posting.
Correct. So how are you
Yeah.
working with that?
So just a small tip just for you, nothing to do with AZM, nothing to do with Israel. If you want to see your own followers, the information from your own friends, respond and comment when they post something, and then you'll see it more. Okay? If you don't respond, if you don't, no, you can like it. And if you comment, then the algorithm will say, okay, they're interested. Otherwise, they're just you're not going to see them. Okay, so the only way, since organic reach has disappeared, the only way of getting through to people that are not in your realm is either working with influencers, which is what we do. So, for example, it's bringing people to Israel, influencers, we connect to their platforms, and then they have their say. Turning these influencers into brand ambassadors, which is one of the things that we want to do, meaning paying them to continue posting about Israel, and they're happy to do it, okay, surprisingly, but they are happy to do it. Or the second thing, which is the most powerful, which is just paid advertising online. The only way you reach your circle beyond your own circle is paid advertising. It's annoying, but it's not super expensive as compared to paid advertising in general, like offline. Okay, so you could put in even $5,000 and you would get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. That's the interesting thing that is this whole social media world. That's a wonderful question. I would be delighted to share that question.
With that question posed,
no, they're doing some of it. They're not ignoring it completely.
We could go on for a very long time, and I think Joanna has some time available to stay. Thank you very much